Hello, hello. Welcome to the Healing Hour. Happy Thursday. I am your podcast host, Sarah Fargo O'Brien. I am a licensed clinical social worker here out of Richmond, Virginia. And the Healing Hour is all about learning on topics for trauma-informed care and trauma-informed leadership, because I believe that will create a better world. So I will give a few announcements, talk about our content for today, do my check-in and deep breaths, and then, we'll get started on the topic. For anybody that missed it yesterday when I made the post for today's podcast show, I'm offering a freebie, one of my free products. Well, it won't be free forever. It's going to be free for the first 10 people that let me know they are here today. And it's something I haven't released yet, and you can't even buy it on my site. So it will be really good. It's related to today's topic of gaslighting part 2. And so if you want that, go ahead, give me a shout out. Let me know that you're here. You know that I like to talk to my friends, and I appreciate you guys showing up to support my show, because otherwise, who am I, right? Like, I'm just some random chick from Virginia who's talking about all kinds of mental health and healing stuff on this podcast that really doesn't go anywhere and doesn't do anything unless you guys are here and want to get the information. So grab your coffee, pull up a seat, and let's learn a little something. The Healing Hour podcast is sponsored by the Let's Be Diverse podcast and Andrew Stout. Leanna, good morning. Number 1 to receive my freebie later on after the show. Thank you for showing up. Hopefully it will be useful to you. I am so glad that you are here. Thank you for chiming in. Andrew Stout, Let's Be Diverse podcast. So if you guys haven't checked out his podcast, please go ahead and do so. Andrew has spent a career in HR and inclusive leadership and really understanding the value of diversity and how to be a people leader, which means, leading from a place of care and appreciation, value for humanity, which is where we align in our work. And so it's nice to be able to collaborate with friends and colleagues where you share alignment. That's the only way I do business anyways, is in alignment. I have come to learn that there are lots of people that I do not align with and that maybe present themselves in a way that makes it seem as though we will align, and then their behavior down the line is not trauma informed, and then flips, so alignment and work together is important. Leanna's excited about her. Woo! She's excited about her freebie. And I am so happy to be giving it away. Okay. Announcements. Let's Be Diverse podcast. Giving out 10 freebies for the, next 9 people now that let me know that you are here today. We are going to be talking about gaslighting part 2. So if you didn't catch last week's show, you can watch the replay on my YouTube channel, which is just YouTube/@TimelessTherapist. @TimelessTherapist is also my Instagram handle. And you can find all the ways to contact me, work with me, all of my digital products and everything else, and all my free products on my website at www.sarahobrianlcsw.com. So go check out what I have going on there. Let me do my check-in, y'all. I got to my desk 15 minutes before the show. I had to take my dog to the vet this morning for all of her annual things. She was all kinds of nuts and had to get poked 3 times because she wouldn't hold still to get her blood taken. So it's already been an adventurous and exciting morning for me. I've been to the vet and back, and I barely made it here in time for my show, but I still have my coffee and my water and my emotional support water bottle that gives me daily reminders of all of these affirmations. I recommend putting some affirmations in your mind in whatever way that you can get it, even if it's through your emotional support water bottle. So I am a little bit scattered because I haven't been sitting at my desk. So I'm not really in work mode. I was in, doggy mom mode and running around this morning in errands and trying to get myself ready to go. For those who watched the show last week, I didn't sleep well that day. Well, it's been 7 nights in a row. I have not slept well. So I am holding it together much better today than I did last Thursday. So if you go back and catch that replay, you'll get to see me in real form on my show, which is not in the best headspace, just not in the best emotional space. I was tired, grumpy. And like I said last week, I like to show up authentically. And so when I'm not polished or not put together or not even in a good mood, I still like to show up so people can see what that looks like. Humans are dynamic, we're diverse, we have many layers. And so we might as well not hide those. It's impossible to be perfect all the time. And as a recovering perfectionist myself, it's a good healing and learning experience for me to just show up as is, even though when I can't be perfect. And so that is the point. That was the point of last week. In some other year in my life, I probably would have just canceled it because I couldn't show up as my best self. But showing up as my real self is the new goal instead of always being my best self. And so here we are. So I'm going to take my 3 deep breaths because Lord knows I need them this morning to ground myself. So I'm not just like spouting off things at you guys, and so that I can get myself settled, grounded, and oriented to the present time to be able to deliver content to you guys in a organized kind of way. I have a random hair. Long hair people, you know what I'm talking about. Get stuck on so many things. Okay, well, before I do my 3 deep breaths, my buddy showed up. Andrew, so happy to see you. I'm glad that you didn't miss it. Andrew is number 2 to get my freebie today. So we are down to 8. The next 8 people that let me know that you're here, you'll get my freebie after the show. It's something I have not released yet. It's something somewhat related to today's topic. And the other little hint I'll give you is that it's a workbook. It's one of my digital products. It's a workbook and it's not even available for sale yet. So I'm giving it away to 10 people and would love your feedback after you get it and work through it some. Okay, if you want to ground yourself with me and orient yourself to the present time or calm your nervous system, turn down the cortisol, deep breathing does that. Some people call this breath work. I usually just call it deep breathing or deep breathing techniques. It's the same thing. In through your nose, out through your mouth, try to elongate that exhale. That's what creates that sort of relaxing, calming feeling in the body, in your physiological system, in your nervous system. And fun fact, I know I've said this before on this show, but deep breathing works faster at calming your system and like turning off the cortisol in your brain faster than Xanax. Yep. Faster than Xanax and without side effects. So deep breathing is excellent and healthy for us. Go ahead and take the deep breaths with me if you want. Number 1, here we go. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And again. Number 3. Okay. That always grounds me. So again, let me know that you're here. Interact with me. Let me know if you have questions on what we're talking about. Let's see where my slide deck is. Here we go. Alrighty. Gaslighting part 2. What does it look like? Are there examples we can examine? Short answer, yes. I'm going to go into some specifics and specifically workplace examples. So where gaslighting shows up or can show up in the workplace. So gaslighting can take many forms, and we're going to take a closer look at each of these common scenarios of gaslighting at work. Again, part 2 of gaslighting. Part 1 last week really went into like what it is, signs that somebody's gaslighting you, sort of in terms of like how it feels and reactions and behaviors that you see. And we had just a couple of examples at the end of last session, but it was a lot of like the bulk of information on what gaslighting is. So be sure to go back and check that and rewatch that episode to get that information, as today kind of piggybacks off of that. So we'll review a little bit on what gaslighting is, talk about how it's a coercive behavior or used in coercive leadership, 7 ways someone can use gaslighting, and then, of course, the specific workplace examples I have mentioned. So, as a recap, gaslighting is manipulation and abuse. At its core, it's a form of psychological manipulation. It's the opposite of feeling psychologically safe. So, if the scenarios that I talk about later are happening in your workplace, I would say by default, it's not a psychologically safe workplace. And so, if we think about psychological safety in the workplace, we need to consider it as important or sort of elevate it to where we would hold physical safety or physical non-safety at work. So if it's not okay to have physical unsafety at work, it should not be okay to have psychological unsafety at work, or where things are not safe psychologically, just like it's not okay to have things that are not safe physically. Now, things do happen and that are not safe physically at workplaces. That's wrong, in my opinion. But more pervasively, things are not psychologically safe at workplaces, which is also wrong, in my opinion. And I think that all around leadership and workplaces need to do a better job of taking care of the people that work for them. They're human beings. They have emotions. They have finite limits. They are not robots. They come with a myriad of histories and dynamics, like I've said before, some with lived experiences of trauma, like myself. And so we spend, oh gosh, at least a third, right? Like pretty much of our lives at work. And so if we don't feel safe at work, that's a lot of time to, number one, be uncomfortable. Number two, to not be valued as a human being. So it's a form of psychological manipulation, gaslighting. It's also a form of psychological abuse. It's often more subtle than other types of emotional abuse or psychological abuse, like bullying. And the gaslighter, the person doing the gaslighting, manipulates the gaslightee, the person being gaslighted, in a way that forces them to question their own version of events and even their own sanity. It really is insidious and dangerous, and really has a negative impact on the people that suffer under somebody using gaslighting. So gaslighting is a coercive tactic. And a coercive tactic would be occurs when a person in a position of authority uses their power to influence behavior or force compliance. The biggest thing here is like forcing compliance. We're coercing somebody into doing something that we want. Except what I'm talking about is when this happens in workplaces, and often when bosses, supervisors, executives, managers, whatever, are using coercive tactics in leadership to get the workforce to do what they want them to do, whether or not they're capable or it's reasonable or whatever. Gaslighting is an attempt to control a person's behavior with force or manipulation. Same with coercive tactic. And if an employee feels bullied at work, they may be made to feel silly or irrational for even acknowledging the behavior, let alone thinking it's wrong. This helps the bully to maintain control over the situation and the person. That's kind of what a coercive tactic is. Bullying would be another coercive tactic. Gaslighting is a coercive tactic. And it's when it's used by a person in a position of power or leadership, it helps to maintain this control over the person. They feel subjected to whatever this person that's using coercive tactics to do. It often feels like we don't have a choice, especially when it's at work. The number of people that I work with and talk to that talk about their shitty leadership, their terrible bosses, the gaslighting that happens there, as well as bullying and other coercive tactics, and then just the fear and that they feel, and feeling paralyzed to do anything about it, is so pervasive that people just keep suffering under this type of behavior and this type of leadership. So what are 7 ways to gaslight someone? There could be more than this. This is what I have found, and this is what we will go with for today. So first is misremembering. Let's see, I'll go through them all first. Misremembering, getting defensive, untimely encouragement, lying about small stuff, pretending to help, downplaying, and being hypocritical. So misremembering, what is this? Conveniently forgetting something that you said or something that you did because it suits them to maintain power. So this is done on purpose, guys. Like this is not accidentally misremembering. This is purposely misremembering. This is purposely telling you that they don't remember you doing something or saying something, because by doing that, somehow it keeps them in a position of power and control. We will get to some examples later, so hang tight, of like, you might be saying, what does that mean? We're going to get into some examples. Oh, my buddy Carolyn is here in the house. Hi, Carolyn. Good morning. Carolyn is number 3 to receive my freebie after the show. Again, I got 7 left. So the next 7 people that tell me that you are here, you will get a copy of my freebie after the show today. Carolyn, I'm so happy to see you. I appreciate you always supporting me. Big love from my friend Carolyn. We've gotten to work on some projects before, and I really appreciate Carolyn and the work that she's done in the world in her life. Thank you for showing up, Carolyn. We are talking about gaslighting, 7 ways to gaslight someone. Number 2, getting defensive. When you bring up an important issue or try to stand up for yourself, a gaslighter will almost always get defensive. And getting defensive is basically just shutting you down. Like it's just that. It's defending what they're doing and not allowing your experience to penetrate. They don't want to hear it. They don't care. It's not as important. And so this is pretty common. So this is why a lot of like my clients and individuals that I work with feel like they can't address this at work, because if they do, especially if it's their boss, manager, supervisor, person in a position of leadership, they just get shut down pretty quickly with defensiveness or some of these other things. Also, retaliation is a real thing that happens, even though it's not supposed to happen. It does. And so if you are the squeaky wheel or the whistleblower or the, what advocate, which was always me at work, like, then you're probably going to be met with opposition to you trying to point out that they're doing something wrong or harmful. Getting defensive is a way that someone can gaslight you, which is also to say, like, what I did wasn't wrong or bad or whatever. Like, you're just sensitive to it or you're just upset by it. But really, I didn't do anything wrong. That's being defensive. Again, we'll get into a specific example later. Untimely encouragement. Gaslighters may give you some positive reinforcement just when you're reaching your breaking point. The encouraging behavior makes you feel better despite your confusion. So, yeah, this is sort of hot, cold, black, white kind of stuff. And so they could be giving you negative feedback or negative reinforcement or ignoring you or doing this misremembering thing, and then all of a sudden give you encouragement. And so that also keeps us off our axis, right? It's negative, 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 your interactions with this gaslighting person, and then they give you encouragement. That's confusing, and that confusion really messes with our minds is the best way that I can say it. Number 4, 7 ways that somebody can gaslight you. Lying about small stuff. This can easily misdirect a person from the truth or even seeking out the truth. And this is I think this is one of the ones that makes people feel like they're going crazy. Like you say, hey, I saw you do this, or I saw you take this. And then they just simply lie about it. And then you end up questioning yourself of like, did that happen? Is that true? Like what's happening here? Lying about small stuff. No, I didn't take your stapler when the stapler is sitting on their desk. Can you imagine if somebody like doubles down is like, no, I didn't take it, and you see it sitting there, how crazy that's going to make you feel? If you've never experienced gaslighting, it's really hard to describe. It's very uncomfortable, and you you don't trust yourself and you don't believe yourself. You're questioning everything because somebody is literally manipulating you into questioning everything that's real and true for you. Number 5, pretending to help. This keeps a person on a string, assuming and believing the gaslighter is helping when in fact they are not. This can just be frustrating, if not confusing. And you say, hey, like, you were supposed to give me that deliverable by Friday. Here we are at Tuesday. Where is it? Oh, I've been working on it. I spent the whole weekend working on it, and I'll have it to you by the end of the day. And then they really haven't been working on it at all, and they're not helping it at all. And it's really just going to throw back your deadline potentially, and then you may have to do the work because they're not actually helping. Okay. Number 6, downplaying. Saying one thing and doing another, often the complete opposite of what they originally said. So, and downplaying like something that you've done or something that you have achieved. And that's, again, going to make you feel really shitty, if not confusing. Same with hypocritical. Oh, maybe I didn't change my definition for. I have to go back and look at that, guys. The downplaying. But we have an example coming up. Did my slide deck at the last minute, guys. Again, not perfect. Okay, so hypocritical is saying one thing and doing another, often the complete opposite of what you originally said. We'll get to downplaying a little bit when I have my example. So you guys all know what being hypocritical is: saying one thing and doing another, often the complete opposite. So if this is sure, yeah, your supervisor tells you, yeah, you can take that time off. Great. In 3 months, yeah, you can do that for vacation. And then you get to the time where you're taking it off for your vacation and your boss says, I never said you could take that time off. Well, that's hypocritical. That's going to make you feel crazy, and it's really going to just like fuck up your plans, right? Like, and then if you're at work and this could potentially jeopardize your job if they expect you to be there, even though 3 months ago, your supervisor could tell you have the time off. Like, you can imagine the conflict this causes somebody, especially when it's happening at work. These are manipulative tactics used on purpose to either throw you off, which keeps you vulnerable and unsure of yourself. Like I said, throws you off your axis so that you're just always questioning things and unsure of yourself. So this means that there isn't a self-trust going on, where you can believe the things you see, believe the things you say, and believe the things that you've heard from somebody else. We're unsure and constantly questioning those things. Or you're purposely misled, and this is to confuse you and make you question yourself or your reality. And like I said, this is pretty uncomfortable if you experience that. So I'll get to an example of downplaying, since I don't have the correct definition there. But the 7 ways someone can gaslight: misremembering, getting defensive, giving untimely encouragement, lying about small stuff, pretending to help, downplaying your achievements or efforts, and being hypocritical. Okay, some specific examples. Let me know if you guys have any questions or if anybody has experienced any of these things. I'm pretty sure I've experienced all of these things. I've experienced many of these things in my family system and my family of origin, and this is why I am estranged from just about everybody I'm a blood relative with. It's pervasive and it's really unsettling. So what's a workplace example of misremembering? Your boss tells you they never got the report that you delivered last Friday, yet you're sure you left that report on their desk. In fact, you did because you stayed late to get it done. But the gaslighter, your boss in this scenario, is adamant that they never got it. Despite your certainty, you start to wonder if somehow you misplaced it or someone else took it off your manager's desk. You come up with possible scenarios, even highly unlikely ones, that would confirm the gaslighter's version of the story. So even though you did it, their intentional manipulation and the misremembering and gaslighting you makes you questioning whether you actually did the work and then dropped it off. That's messed up. And it's, number one, an absolutely horrible way to be a people leader. Number 2, it's causing so much damage to people when you are using this, especially if this is a boss. And everybody's like, well, what's the gain here? Like, the boss got the report. So what's the point of saying they didn't get the report? And the whole point of using gaslighting is to manipulate people. To manipulate people to keep them under your control. So if somebody is questioning themselves, questioning their reality, they don't trust themselves, then they're going to end up believing the version of events from the gaslighter. And that's what keeps them in control. That means the person who's gaslighting can pretty much do whatever they want, convince you of it, and then you're going to believe it because you're left questioning yourself. That's why this is insidious. That's why this is dangerous. That's why if this is being used in a workplace by a boss or not, it's making it psychologically unsafe to work there. Getting defensive, workplace example. Gaslighters don't like to be challenged or being proved wrong. To maintain control over their victims, a gaslighter will get defensive and find a way to manipulate you into believing you are at fault. For example, if you confront the gaslighter about their inappropriate workplace behavior or jokes, they might turn it around on you by asking you why you're not resilient enough to take a joke. However, jokes that target your culture, gender, or any other protected trait are absolutely inappropriate. So you bringing it up and saying it's inappropriate is totally valid. Your feelings of it making you uncomfortable is totally valid. However, the gaslighter is like, you're just weak. You're just not resilient. Why can't you just take a joke? That doesn't feel good. Has anybody ever said that to you? Why can't you just take a joke when you don't find it funny or you find it offensive? Yeah, that's somebody getting defensive and they're sort of cutting you down at the same time. So when dealing with a gaslighter, look out for phrases like, you're too sensitive, or, I don't mean it that way. I cannot count. Last bit of my coffee there. I cannot count how many times I've heard both of these two things. You're too sensitive, or, I didn't mean it that way. When somebody says something to me and it triggers or activates an emotion in me, or I don't like it, I find it inappropriate, or I'm offended by it, I cannot count. And it's not that I don't have a sense of humor. It's that when things are inappropriate, they're inappropriate. Anybody else experience this? I bet you have. Untimely encouragement, workplace example. Yeah, Carolyn knows what I'm talking about. I've had that happen to me, right? Probably more than once, Carolyn. Like, I don't know how many times that's happened to me. Like I said, I cannot count the number of times that especially an inappropriate joke has been said. And I'm like, hey, that's not cool. And somebody's like, oh, what's your problem? What's the big deal? Like, why can't you take a joke? Everybody else thinks it's funny. Everybody's wrong if it's inappropriate. I don't have any problem saying that, but it still doesn't feel good emotionally, psychologically within yourself, to have that happen. Okay, untimely encouragement. The goal of the gaslighter is generally to keep you under their control, not to destroy you altogether. So this is kind of that push-pull dynamic. It keeps you a little bit on a string so that you're not like, oh, this person is just a complete shit and it's terrible, because they'll do things sometimes that is the opposite. And this is where it like creates all that confusion in you. So, untimely encouragement, as such, they'll notice when you're getting close to a breaking point or to identifying their role as a gaslighter and switch up the approach with some positive feedback. Maybe they'll take you out to lunch to celebrate some form of success that you don't feel is all that justified. It may feel extra odd considering how they've acted towards your previous successes. However, this behavior will never last, which makes it a clear example of gaslighting. This is manipulation. So instead of you thinking the gaslighter is a terrible person all the time, they do something nice every now and again, which confuses you and continues to throw you off your axis, let alone have you questioning like whether that's genuine. It's not. And so all of that questioning is just bad for our psychological and mental health. And I agree with Carolyn. It's painful. It's painful when people act this way and when they treat you this way and make you question things about yourself and your own reality. Lying about small stuff, workplace example. A gaslighter may take your stuff without asking and then deny it. Coworkers borrow stuff from each other's desks from time to time, and sometimes you aren't around for them to ask you. However, a gaslighter will outright deny this and lie about other things. making you question whether you simply misplaced the item yourself, right? Like I was sort of saying before about the stapler, and it's like they'll just say they didn't take it. And so then at the end of the day, they're in the clear and you're over questioning yourself and going crazy, going like, where the fuck did I put my stapler? It seems like a small thing, but doing that again and again and again to somebody just honestly just fucks with their head. There's no other way for me to say it. So this is an undeniable example of gaslighting in the workplace, taking something and then lying about it and saying they did not take it. They could be lying about anything. That's just an example of somebody taking something and lying about it. Okay, pretending to help, workplace example. The gaslighter tells you they are working on something for you, even though in reality they haven't even started. You've asked them several times and they continually tell you they've been working on it for you and are nearly done. I alluded to this a little bit earlier when I was describing pretending to help. They'll probably convince you that the work isn't all that important or urgent, or that you're putting too much pressure on them. You may start to believe that you're actually in the wrong. Unfortunately, you've just become the victim of gaslighting. So this is like they keep telling you they're working on it. You don't get it, the work that they've been doing because they're not actually working on it. And so then at some point they flip it around. You can see like all of these examples and all of these ways somebody can gaslight you kind of flips it around. Getting defensive flips it around. Lying about it flips it around. All of this puts it back on you to make you seem crazy, wrong, and the gaslighter to be fine, or the victim actually. This is another great way to manipulate somebody and make them feel like they're losing their mind. Downplaying. Okay, I didn't get this definition over there earlier to you guys, so here we go. Downplaying. Gaslighters will tell you it's fine to miss the morning meeting, downplaying the importance. Okay, especially if this is like a boss or a supervisor and you're like, hey, I'm really busy and swamped. Can I miss that meeting because I have stuff to do? Or hey, my kid has dance recital. Can I miss that meeting? And they're like, sure. Yeah, no problem. When it's actually like you really need to attend and they don't set you up for success with that. They just tell you it's fine to miss it and downplaying the importance of the meeting or the fact that you actually need to be there just to mess with you. Okay. So they tell you it's fine to miss the meeting, downplaying the importance. But when you do miss the meeting, they may grill you for not attending and use aggressive language. A gaslighter will deny altogether that they afforded you this benefit, saying that you could miss the meeting to begin with. And denying it altogether is lying, right? Like they're lying when they're saying now, oh, I didn't tell you that you could miss the meeting. And again, this just has you like, yes, they did. Did I hear that right? Did I get that wrong? Well, they are my boss. Maybe I misunderstood. And it just has you reeling. Okay. This isn't just a case of a difficult coworker or boss. This is a clear example of gaslighting in the workplace. By using these manipulative tactics, gaslighters maintain control of their victims. I keep saying this because this is what it does. And if it throws you off your axis, like feeling grounded, in control of yourself, trusting yourself, then it's going to leave you vulnerable to suggestion or direction from the gaslighter. It keeps them in the one-up position. It keeps you in the one-down position. If it doesn't keep you in the like 7-down position, like they just are holding the power. They're making you feel crazy. The more that you feel crazy, the less confident you feel about yourself, the less you can trust yourself in the things you saw and the things you did. And the less we trust ourselves and the less confident we are in ourselves, the more we're going to look for somebody else to give us direction or to tell us our truth. And low confidence in general just doesn't feel good in psychological health and mental health. It's difficult for people if we're not feeling confident. And this is using gaslighting techniques is a great way to leave people absolutely feeling a lack of confidence and trust in themselves. Okay. Oh, I forgot to change the word on this. See, guys, my slide deck is like not up to date today, doing the best I can. So this last one is hypocritical. Workplace example. Says one thing, does another. Remember, that's what this is. For example, the gaslighter might advocate for lunch breaks that are strictly 30 minutes long, but you catch them taking a 45-minute break the very next day. If you try to confront them over this behavior, the gaslighter will always have an excuse for why they are the exception. Saying things like, can't you see how hard I work? And they may say, even though you know for a fact that they take frequent breaks and rarely deliver on projects. This is once again a way the gaslighters will lead you to question your own perceptions, right? So, and imagine if this is, I don't know, this is coming from a boss. Like, okay, we all get a 30-minute lunch break, but the boss takes 45, or it's a coworker, right? In this sort of scenario, and saying that they work really hard, yet they don't, and they're always taking breaks. I mean, it's just hypocritical. Like, there's no other way to say it. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. I feel a little all over the place today, but I appreciate you saying that. And Andrew is right. Andrew, what did you mean by connection is key? Where are you referring that to? Give me a little bit more information there. Like I said, guys, Andrew has been in HR, so he maybe has dealt with things like this, or like this between coworkers at some point. Again, the biggest thing with gaslighting is that it makes you question your own reality, guys. It makes you question what you know has happened, what you've experienced, what you've seen with your own eyes and heard with your own ears. And all of these ways, right? Like if I go back, let me go all the way back. Misremembering, getting defensive, untimely encouragement, lying about small stuff, pretending to help, downplaying, and being hypocritical are all ways to like flip things back on you so that they are never in the wrong, ever. I didn't mean that. You misinterpret that. I never said you couldn't attend that you could miss the meeting. I didn't take the stapler off your desk. I told you I was working on it and I would deliver when it was done. I work so hard. Why can't I take breaks? Right? All of these things, it's just constantly giving excuses for what they're doing or the impact of what they're doing, or the negative impact of what they're doing and how that's landing on you. And ultimately, it's not taking any responsibility for their behavior or the harmful impact of their behavior. And again, people using gaslighting and using it purposely, like, are trying to control and manipulate you. And yeah, it's exactly this. Carolyn, the gaslighter tries to break you in your confidence. And if they do that, then they can just control you, right? Like the less strong mentally and emotionally you feel in yourself, the more power the gaslighter has over you, and to be, again, manipulating you into doing what they want, or at least to be passing the buck, basically, and not taking responsibility and passing that on to you. Okay, let's get back to Andrew. It says, I think we need to have connection with others when you have to have difficult conversations. Yes, right. So difficult conversations could also be something like conflict resolution, difference of opinion, difference of ideas, right? Some of those things could maybe fall into difficult conversation. And yes, if you don't build rapport, have connection, treat somebody like a human being, and that there's value for both people, despite whatever the difficult thing that you have to discuss, then it's going to be hard for that to be an equitable conversation, and where both people walk away feeling heard, valued, and at least like considered, I guess, even if it doesn't lead to action that's, for this person, and it goes more for this person. Being able to have the conversation and have two people walk away still feeling valued and important just as a human being does take skill, emotional intelligence, human-centered communication, and trauma-informed care skills. So to be able to have difficult conversation or resolve conflict effectively, I think you need these things: emotional intelligence, human-centered communication skills, and trauma-informed care skills. So these are all things that can be learned and can be practiced. However, you have to put the effort in. This is a lot of the other work I do outside being a practicing psychotherapist at my own practice virtually here in Virginia. I am a mental health and trauma-informed leadership content copywriter. I also speak, train, and write on trauma-informed leadership, where all these things fall into that. And most of the digital products and things that I've created revolve around increasing emotional intelligence, learning better human human-centered communication and learning principles and practices for trauma-informed care. And one of the main principles and practices for trauma-informed care is doing your own self-work and having self-awareness, which is also a pillar of emotional intelligence, also a pillar of human-centered communication. If you can't be aware of yourself, you can't do these other things well. And so a big part of what I teach and talk about is self-care and setting boundaries, because if we don't do that well, we're not going to be able to do these other things well for other people. So a big piece of trauma-informed leadership is self-care and self-awareness. If you are not able to take care of all your needs effectively, you're not going to be able to show up in the best space. And when we're not able to show up in the best space, it's much easier for us to be judgmental, critical, more shut down, instead of open, curious, listening, willing to learn. And so really doing our self-work helps us get out of our own way so we can be present in the room. This is something that is heavily emphasized in therapist training schools, guys. This is why therapists are great at this. And if you need somebody to come in and consult on like how to do this well, you should be looking at a therapist. We do this day in and day out with people we don't know. And brand new clients, right, in that space. And so human-centered communication, learning to get your own self out of the way so you can be present in the room with somebody else, is a skill that therapists have. And yes, right, and going back to the difficult conversations, Andrew says diversity of thought, right, requires some skill to have. Leaving people feeling seen, heard, valued, and understood, absolutely. And Carolyn hits it, right? This is the trauma-informed piece, a connection you can trust. So building rapport is one thing, like you get along with somebody, like they make you feel okay, like, or they don't make you feel bad, they're not causing any harm. That's great. Like that's positive rapport, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have trust. And trust is only built at the pace of our nervous systems. Thank you, Katie Kurtz, for that sort of phrase there. And I love that and I appreciate that. So you can only develop trust as fast as your nervous system is going to allow you to be comfortable with somebody. And that develops over time and with consistent behavior. And so it's consistent behavior that's not harmful, because gaslighting is consistent behavior that is harmful. And in the end, anybody engaging in gaslighting is not going to be trusted. They're going to be feared. And they may be obeyed, but they're not going to be trusted. And that having a foundation of trust between two people is huge for safety, obviously, but that's even more huge for productivity, for, yes, valuing humanity, for collaboration, for innovation, for conversations, for working together, time and circumstances. Yes, time and circumstances a lot have to do with like your nervous system and your lived experiences and potentially your past lived experiences of trauma. How is that impacting how you connect with folks? How long that maybe takes you to trust folks. There's no wrong here. You know, it goes at the pace of your nervous system, and that's all we can do. So I really hope this has given you guys some good information about gaslighting and how to spot it, maybe how to manage it. The best way to manage it is by setting boundaries. If you have difficulty setting boundaries, saying no, knowing how to do that effectively in the workplace, I'm your professional, guys. I can literally walk you through how to say things to your boss to hold a boundary that's good for you and healthy for you, that challenges these unhealthy or coercive tactics and won't get you fired, right? Like you should be able to take care of yourself at work and set boundaries. And if you need help with this, like knowing what to communicate, how to communicate it, what boundaries even are, what your boundaries even are, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, contact me. For individual coaching or for business to business consulting, if you want to learn more about this, like your whole team or your organization wants to learn about setting appropriate boundaries, we can do that. If you're an individual who just wants to learn how to do this in your life, in your relationships, at your workplace, I'm available for one-to-one coaching, and I have packages available to sort of cut down on the cost on that. So if you get a number of sessions together to sort of work on whatever it is, but if it's setting boundaries, then we'll spend 5 to 10 sessions together, whatever that you choose, and see how far we get. But that will cut down on your individual session price. So tell your friends. I am available worldwide for coaching and consulting. I am available in Virginia and Maryland right now for individual psychotherapy. That is where I'm licensed. Those are the only 2 states I can practice in. No, I cannot practice overseas. Let me tell you guys why, even though my license is based out of the state that I'm in. So Virginia, and I'm licensed in Maryland. So it's not federal, it's not national. We're hoping for an interstate compact to come soon, but it still doesn't mean it's going to be national or federal. It's still state dependent, and states are coming up with the criteria and the regulations around the interstate compact. And that's for therapists to be able to provide services across state lines for all states that participate in the compact, which are not all states in the country. But the reason why I also cannot practice therapy for somebody living overseas or not in the United States or really outside Virginia and Maryland, number one, I'm not licensed to do so. So I don't necessarily meet the criteria for that state or that country to provide services. And the most important thing, when you maybe get frustrated at why a therapist isn't willing to do this, is because my malpractice insurance does not cover me outside of the states where I'm licensed, and that includes in other countries. So that means if I'm doing psychotherapy with somebody outside of my licensed states and something happens, or they have a mental health crisis, or God forbid, they have a drug overdose, or they attempt suicide, or something else happens and they're unsatisfied with me and they have a complaint, I am not covered. There is no way for me to cover under my malpractice insurance that, because they will not cover me if I'm practicing out of the scope of my license, which only allows me to practice within Virginia and Maryland. So a little bit of that as well, on top of like wellness coaching. I have a little bit of a rub with wellness coaching because it feels a little bit like pseudo therapy and how people want to get around therapy. Let me be clear that if you come to me for setting boundaries or for coaching on a specific thing or self-care habits, we are not going to be doing therapy. We're not going to be diving into your past. We're not going to be diving into your limiting beliefs, for your mindset, symptoms of anxiety. We're not dealing with any of that. We have goals for what you want to accomplish. You basically come up with those goals and you come up with those actions, and I sort of help guide you along the way. It is not therapy. It's not pseudo therapy. It's not about your overall wellness. It is about a specific skill or something that you want to learn, that you want to dive into, that you have motivation and dedication to do. It is very client driven in the coaching world. And as much as I try to allow that to be the case in the therapy world, there is a little bit of a piece. Well, there's a piece of that. The therapist is always a little bit in the one-up position, because we have to guide change, because essentially that's what they're there for. And guiding that change requires specific skills that I have been trained in and supervised in and now licensed in, that coaches are not. So while I bring all of that information and experience to my coaching and consulting, I have to be very clear that it's not like therapy, and it should feel and look different. And if it feels anything like therapy, then somebody is overstepping there. Wellness coaches without if they're providing coaching at all, that needs to not be therapy. So even if you have a wellness coach that is a therapist like me, or a life coach that is a therapist, nothing like therapy should be happening. So keep that in mind, guys, when you are vetting your provider, whether you need a consultant, whether you need a coach, whether you need a counselor or a therapist. Make sure you are doing your research on who they are, what are their credentials, why are they, an expert in anything to be able to offer you that service. Just because somebody calls them a life coach or wellness coach does not mean that they have credentials to give you advice based on anything, right? Like if they don't have education or skills and or license in this, then you really need to do your own vetting with them to say, well, what do they have? What makes them an expert to teach me on this thing, and really do your due diligence there. And exactly, Caroline, needing a support network, kind of like friends and understanding. Yes. And we all need that to thrive. And that's where sustainable self-care, setting boundaries, emotional intelligence helps bring us together so that we can have a safe, supportive network and so that we can be a safe support for other people, so that it's reciprocal, right? In these relationships. So I've given you guys a lot of information about gaslighting, about the different services that I offer. Also wrote a blog on the differences between counseling, coaching, and consulting. So head on over to my website to check that out. And that will give you a little bit more detail about what I'm talking about here and the differences between a psychotherapist, a life coach, and a consultant. Okay. We are wrapping up for today. Thank you guys for my friends popping in and talking to me. You three will get the freebie. So how can I help you improve in trauma-informed skills? So if we're talking about gaslighting, number one, it's not gaslighting. If you're doing that, I doubt you're going to come to me for help because that's not usually how this works. Because again, they're lacking the self-accountability and self-awareness to do anything about it. But if you are the victim or the subject of gaslighting and you need to know how to handle that better, you can contact me and we can develop some skills, some tangible skills and some language around what you can do to set boundaries and or take better care of yourself if you're not quite at the place to setting boundaries. So one way you can learn about how not to engage in gaslighting and how to show up better is increasing your emotional intelligence. And I have a free ebook on my website. Just go to free resources and you can download that right now. If you are like in the midst of gaslighting, I imagine that you might be stressed, maybe anxious, maybe uncomfortable. That's usually been me when I've been the subject of gaslighting. So freebie number 2 on my website that you can go get are natural remedies to manage anxiety. So these are things that are not medication based and not therapy based, but other natural remedies that you can use to manage your anxiety or stress levels might be helpful for people to see. And then Worthy as Fuck workbook. And I have this here to remember who the fuck you are and regain your power that the gaslighter took from you. Often this, like I said, puts us on shaky ground, throws us off of our access. We lack self-confidence and trust in ourselves. And if you don't want to work with me, you can grab one of my kits and start doing the work individually. You don't even have to interact with me to download these products, guys. You just go straight on my website, fill out the form, pay. It comes directly to your inbox. So if it's intimidating to you to like reach out to somebody, to actually work face-to-face with somebody, just try one of my kits or workbooks first and then decide if you want some more help with that. Like I said, I offer individual coaching for your individual growth or growing in leadership skills, and business to business consulting for executive teams, leads, managers, and applying skills to your workplace or organizational setting. You can you can find all my contact and ways to contact me via email, message, everything else on my website at www.sarahobrienlcsw.com. I am a licensed psychotherapist, like I said, a trauma-informed leadership strategist, and I have several coaching and consulting roles in addition to my practice, my psychotherapy practice, including the director of student wellness for a nonprofit. I speak and train on trauma-informed leadership and strategy all the time through different avenues. So try to catch me on that. I am trying to develop my own webinar for you guys, and it's going to be a crash course in emotional intelligence. Probably short, just 1 hour, and will be pre-recorded and available for folks. So stay tuned for that. It's coming. And I also am a private practice consultant. So I have been running and operating my private practice for 9 years, and I can help you do the same. And I would love to help therapists do this with all the layoffs and government jobs here recently. You might find yourself a licensed mental health provider and not sure where to go. Being a solopreneur and having your own practice, you will not regret. You will be able to find balance and peace and still do the work that you love. Please contact me if you want to start a private practice. I can help you. Again, thank you to Andrew Stout and the Let's Be Diverse podcast for sponsoring the Healing Hour. Thank you to Leanna this morning, the first person to grab my freebie. Thank you to Carolyn for showing up and commenting and giving me your thoughts and always being here to support me. And Andrew, of course, here to support me. You guys will be getting the freebie soon. So keep a lookout for that. It's coming. Don't forget that you matter and you are worthy, no matter how people have made you feel or what your life experiences have been. If you're feeling like you don't matter and you're unworthy, I get that too. I've been there. And this maybe sounds like a bunch of poppycock and trash, but you really do matter. You really are worthy. I have been in places in life where I felt completely alone and had nobody. And so if that's you, then hear me speaking out to you that you're not, even if you can't identify a safe support at this time. You can be your own safe support. So keep working on you. Keep telling yourself that you matter and that you are worthy, and it will expand. I can guarantee you. If you need help with that, rebuilding your confidence and trust in yourself and your own worth, then contact me. I'm happy to be your hype man. Okay. I don't know what we're going to be talking about next week because I haven't decided yet. I will be bringing on more guests. It's been a little bit crazy and I haven't been as organized as I want to be, but I appreciate everybody that supports my show and telling anybody about it and spreading the word for me and possibly sending me some work. I am looking for coaching and consulting work and contracts and freelance things. So pass my name along to anybody that you know that needs guidance and emotional intelligence, setting boundaries, sustainable self-care, effective communication, and any other trauma-informed leadership skills. That is what I'm here for. My checkout for today is I have a couple of other meetings. I have my own therapy appointment, which is always a little bit draining. I will get to go burn off some energy later at my Zumba class. And thankfully today it's not 31 degrees here in Virginia like it was like 2 days ago. So I am looking forward to the spring weather and it being like a little bit nicer outside and maybe getting out to walk my dog later. So that is where I'm at for the rest of the day. I hope to see you guys next Thursday, April 17th at 11 a.m. for another episode of the Healing Hour. Thank you so much for joining me. I will